You guys asked for more wood projects, so today that's exactly what we're doing. We're headed to the hardware store, we're picking up some really inexpensive 1x2 lumber, and I'm gonna show you how you can transform it into some practical yet beautiful home decor that won't break the bank. This is Whiskey and Whit. My name is Whitney, and I'm so happy to welcome back my whiskey craft buddies who DIY with me each week. If you're not already a craft buddy, no worries, just hit subscribe down below and you can craft along with us. So before we can make anything, we've got to run to the hardware store and get the wood. And if you've never done this before, it can be a little overwhelming. So let me break it down for you. You can either get 1x2 furring strips, which are going to have a little bit more of a rough texture with rounded sides like you're seeing here. Or you can go with a 1x2 piece of pine that's going to give you a more rectangular edge. And I like these personally, but they are going to be a teeny bit more expensive. The ones I purchased were 1x2x8s at $2.73 at my local Menards, and that's pretty comparable anywhere. Now, when I am looking for wood, you don't want to grab from the top because that's pretty much everybody else's rejects. I like to play Jenga essentially and go for either the middle or the bottom if I can slide it out. Now, if you're at some place like Home Depot here where they display them like this, I like to go for the back. Now pull your pieces out and look down them like I'm showing you here, because it's hard to see just by staring right at a piece of wood if it's bowed, and nothing's worse than getting home and realizing you have a wonky piece of wood. Also, a friendly reminder that all of the hardware stores will make non-precision cuts for you, so if you need a bigger piece cut down because it won't fit in your car, you can do that. You will see me using my Ryobi miter saw. However, you do not need a big saw for all of these projects. You can get something like this from Amazon. It is very inexpensive. It's called a miter box. So you will get this box underneath plus a handsaw. You can cut straight, also on angles. This is great if you live in like an apartment or you don't have a garage area to store something like this, or you don't do a ton of woodworking so you don't want to have a big saw. So both of these will be linked down below, but you can make every single project we're doing today with a miter box, which is great. So this first project inspired the entire video because I really needed a solution for our towels. In our new house, they were all underneath the sink and they were taking up valuable cabinet space. So I decided to make a really fun and modern and easy piece so that I could display them and get them out of the cabinet. So my biggest tip when you are doing anything with wood is always remember to measure multiple times to make sure you have what you need, and then cut once, because you can't add wood back on once you've cut a piece. So I cut 2 pieces to 24 inches, 4 pieces to 5 inches, and 2 pieces to 10 inches for the height, width, and depth of my piece. Then I'm going to make sure everything is sanded down, and you want to remove any staples or tags on any ends because it will spark with a power sander like I'm using here. You don't need a power sander. You could also use a hand sanding block. It'll just take a little more time. Now to assemble this, I'm using my Kreg jig, and I really like this one because it's small, easy to store, and it's not over $100 like the other bigger ones are, but you could easily assemble this with a nail gun or screws if not. I'm just doing it this way so I can hide my screws. So the first thing to do is take your middle length piece as well as 2 of your 4 smaller pieces and hook them together. I am doing those pocket hole screws on either end of those smaller pieces so I could make this U shape. Then I am going to attach the U shapes to the 2 24-inch pieces like you're seeing here to make a big, essentially C shape that will come out from the wall. Now again, if you do not have a Kreg jig and you aren't doing the pocket holes, you could easily just start with a nail gun or screws and go directly through the wood. You just want to make this same shape. Once everything was assembled, I went back through with my power sander just to level off some of the pieces just because these 1x2s aren't perfect. And then I went through with Early American Stain to finish it. Once that dried overnight, I was ready to install it, so I needed a drill, 2-inch construction screws, and a stud finder. I like to install my items into a stud because that just means it has more strength on the wall. So a stud finder is easy to use. You just slide it along your wall and it's going to tell you where those pieces of wood are behind your drywall. Also be careful when you are around anything like a shower or plumbing because it could potentially read that it is a stud and it's actually a vent, copper pipe, etc. So be very careful and ask for help when needed before you go drilling into your wall. Then I drilled a pilot hole into the center of my display that was going to fit directly in that stud I just found. And then I'm taking 2-inch construction screws and just drilling it right in. I also have my level on top so I can make sure that I am screwing it in level. And once that top is done, I repeated the same step in the center of the bottom. Now, because this is only holding towels, I really only needed the one screw, but if you feel like you need a little bit more oomph, you could do 2 screws in the top and 2 screws in the bottom. Then the last thing to do was add the towels, get them out of the cabinet, and have them on display. I just rolled them up. It doesn't have to be anything too fancy. And what I like about this is I could switch out the towels. And I also know now visually how many clean towels we have and when I really need to get to work on the laundry. The location of this install was awesome as well because I can easily reach around the wall if I'm in the shower and grab a clean towel if I need one. And then we've got those hooks right there that we just installed from Amazon to hang up the wet ones. So true story, I probably have 5 blanket ladders in our house because I love them so much, and I wanted to show you how you can make one super affordably. So you can make a variety of different sizes, and the first one I'm going to show you is this full-size one. So I have 2 1x2s cut to 72 inches, and then I also made one at 48 inches, and the rungs for both of those are 12 inches. Now this is totally optional, but I like to do a 15-degree miter on the bottom of each of the legs, so then that way it can sit at an angle and it's still going to be flush with the floor. But again, this is totally optional. You can leave it square. This is also a great time to remind you that you can use that miter box for this. It's a nice way to cut the rungs, especially if you have little pieces to get off the ends of scrap and you don't want your fingers that close to the blade of a big saw. And be sure to save your scraps because I've got a bunch of ideas at the end of how you can use those. Now I also did a mini version of this, so I did 2 of the outside pieces to 24 inches and then I cut 4 rungs at 7 inches wide. So then I did it 2 different ways that you can assemble this. You can use a nail gun like I'm doing here, and I'm also using a speed square as well as my little workbench from DeWalt. I liked this because I could square up the 2 top edges so that I knew that the 2 long pieces were even, and then I used the square to make sure my rungs were even. I went through and did just 1 nail on all of the pieces, and once it was hooked with the 1 nail, I could easily twist my rungs so that they were on an angle and then nail them the rest of the way. I like doing the 1 nail and twisting it because it just helps me line it up. It's hard to do the speed square with things on an angle. Then I also did my 48-inch tall one with the nails, so same thing, line it up, speed square, make sure your 2 top pieces are even. And then I like to hang it off the table just a little bit so that I have enough range of motion with my Ryobi nail gun. I love this thing. I have had it for literal years. I've used it so much, and I'm using 1-inch nails here so that it doesn't pop anywhere. I also wanted to show you that if you do have a Craig jig or a way to do pocket holes, you can make the rungs that way. So I went and did the pocket holes on either side. These are 3/4 inch pocket holes, and I'm using 1.5 inch pocket hole screws to take it right into either side of my big ladder. I did all of one side, and then I used the speed square and lined it up on the floor to do the other pieces. And the perk of doing this is your joint is a little bit tighter, but then it also helps hide the screws. I don't mind the nail holes on either side, but that is an option if you want it. Then I did the 2 smaller ones in Early American. I stained the larger one in Briar Smoke, and here they are together. So Briar Smoke is the dark one on the right, and Early American are the 2 to the left. So size comparison, 24 inches to 48 inches to 72 inches. Here's another comparison. I already made one around Christmas time that was 18 inches tall, and so 18 inches is great for my cabinets. You're going to want to measure before you make them. Now here's a really fun blanket ladder hack. I love to get these S-hooks from the garden section at Dollar Tree, and you get 2 for $1.25. I hook one on the rung and one onto a wreath, and this is a great way to display decor over your blanket ladder. I do this for Christmas as well, and it is super inexpensive and easy to do. Up next are these beautiful rustic photo frames. Now I found these mats on Amazon and I wanted to build a frame around the outside. Well, I went to my favorite person, Anna Whit, and she had these plans on her website. So this is my take on her barn wood frames. So what you're going to want to do is measure out your mat, whatever size you're using, and you want 2 pieces to the width and then 2 pieces to the height. So we're basically making a frame here. So I'm going through and measuring and cutting all of those pieces, and you want to make sure you cut it pretty exact. You don't want to round here because it's going to fit pretty tightly so it can hold that mat. Once those pieces were done, I lined them up and realized the left and the right are wide side down and the top and the bottom are short side down. Then I put down my measuring tape so I could measure end to end, including the top and bottom border, how big that outside piece needed to be. And hey to my family in the background. So I took that exact measurement and I cut 2 pieces so that they would sit flush on the outside. It ended up being like a little over 12 1/4, but you're gonna want to measure and cut to your specific mats. I will link the Amazon ones I have down below if you wanna make this exact thing. So then once everything sat out like this, I made sure everything was gonna fit, and then it was time to sand and assemble. So I used both my orbital sander as well as this little corner sander that I got around Christmas time on sale. I like this one because it's cordless and it also is easier to control on smaller pieces like this. So again, I'll link both down below if you're interested in getting a powered version of sanding. Then I grabbed my mat again, got everything laid out, and remember the 2 sides to hold up your mat are going to sit with the wide side down, and then your top and bottom are going to sit on the skinny side. Then I'm just making sure the corner pieces are flush, and I'm going through with 1-inch brad nails and my Airstrike power nailer and hooking all those pieces together. Once our basic frame is put together, then we're going to add those 2 pieces on the outside, and this is going to look very reminiscent of how I frame my wood signs, and I loved that because I could have these kind of look like they go in a set with my wood signs, so whether it be a printable or a picture I'm putting in there, it matches my house. So 2 of the 3 frames I made, I stained in Early American, and then I did 1 in Briar Smoke. And a friendly reminder to always stir your stain. This is something I didn't do a whole lot of in the beginning of my woodworking career, and I was so mad that the color didn't match what was in, like, what the can said. And so you might think, hey, dummy, like, you should think that, but I didn't, so I want to make sure I share it just in case, because I didn't do that. Then I let those dry overnight, and then I brought them inside with my mat, and it was just a little tad bit off. It's just when you're working with wood, it's hard to get it super, super exact. So what I did is I just did a really quick little trim on either side, and it fit just like a glove. Then to have everything stay, I added some hot glue to the 4 corners. You can also add some along the sides of those kind of brace pieces, and then you are good to go. Now you can add whatever you want into this. I think I'm going to use some for printables, but I also wanted to frame this picture of Finn from his birthday party last year, and it's so easy to get the picture to stay. I just lined it up with the mat and used some Scotch tape on the back. Now you could even go crazy and add your own glass or acrylic, but for me, I switch out my pictures so often that I don't need a protective glass. I'm not putting anything in here that's going to stay for years and years, but that's something to think about if that's what you're doing, and I love how this turned out. And it is a great addition to my new picture ledge in our hallway upstairs. It's a really great contrast from these lighter color and white frames that we already had. Now, if you're loving these picture ledges, you are in luck because the next project is me showing you how you can make them. So for these, again, we are using 1x2s. That is the theme of this video, but we're also going to need a 1x3 and a 1x4. And for cutting dimensions, it's really easy. You're going to want your 1x2, 1x3, and 1x4 all to the same length. I decided to do 1 shelf at 36 inches and then 2 shelves at 30 inches. That perfectly used up my 1x2x8, my 1x3x8, and my 1x4x8. So here's everything here, my 1 longer one with an extra 6 inches, and then my 2 matching sets for my bedroom. And here's a quick look at how they're going to go together. The 1x3 is on the bottom with the 1x4 to the right and the 1x2 to the left. So now we're going to take our 1x3, add some wood glue, and line it up where it needs to go. Then to help that wood glue bind together, I am going to take 4 of my clamps. I have 2 large clamps and 2 small clamps. You can get these anywhere. Harbor Freight has some really good ones that are super inexpensive, so I will give you a couple options down below. Once that was all clamped, with the clamps on, I hung it over the side of my workbench and I drilled 4 pilot holes with my drill. This is going to make it so I don't split the wood with my screws that are going in. And then I am just using 2-inch screws here to screw into the back. So we've got not only our wood glue, but our screws as well, because we are going to be putting weight on this joint. This is another one where you could pocket hole the bottom of the 1x3 and go into the 1x4, but the screws work just as well. So then once your shelf is assembled there, we're going to add our 1x2 little face frame to the front. with some wood glue and also some 1-inch brad nails with the air nailer. Now you could use finish nails with a hammer here, just as easy. You could also do screws, but keep in mind, if you do the screws on the front, you're gonna see them. The ones on the back, I don't really care because I'm not gonna see them when it's on the wall. Then this is getting finished with Early American. I like to keep my stains pretty simple so the stuff in my house matches, but you could paint it, you could do whatever you feel. And now it's time for installation. So again, we're grabbing that stud finder and figuring out where the studs are, especially because this is going to be holding more weight than my towel rack is in the bathroom. I'm using my level on the shelf to make sure everything is where it needs to be. And then I am drilling pilot holes into where those studs are, and then I'm doing those 2-inch construction screws. You could even do 3-inch screws. You just want to make sure it's going through into that stud. Then the last step is to decorate, and I love these. They flank our big window in our bedroom, and I love how it looks. I took down these pictures when we staged our house last March, so it's been almost a year since we've had pictures up like this. And it just feels really good to have our room start to really feel like ours again. I also styled this corner with this nice big mirror, and I just love it so much, and it's such an easy beginner-friendly project. I also did the same thing in our hallway above the table, and I installed the shelf into the studs, and then I adjust the table so then that way I knew it was going to hold the weight, and we were all good. Now, you guys have seen before, one of my favorite ways to use 1x2s is to frame out signs, but did you know you can use foam board? So if you haven't watched some of my Cricut videos, then you probably haven't seen this project, so I wanted to share it here in case you could use this in your own way. So here I just took some Dollar Tree black foam board, and I ended up cutting a 20x20 square out with an X-Acto knife. And then I took my miter box. I have two different ones. One's blue, one's yellow. This one was just dulling, so I got a new one. And I cut 2 pieces to the width of the sign, and then I cut 2 more pieces to fit between the 2 edges so I could give myself a nice frame. After a quick little hand sand, then I stained everything with Early American, and then it was time to apply it to my sign. Now, all you need to do this is a staple gun, and you could easily use a craft staple gun for this. I do the 2 sides, make sure everything is hooked down, and then I add my 2 smaller pieces in. And then you've got a sign to do with it what you will. Now, this would also be great with some of those poster prints. You can get it like Walgreens. You could do a family picture, put it on to the foam board before you add the frame, and that would be really pretty. But here I decided to add a Cricut decal, and if you're interested in this sign and this particular free download, I will link it down below. It's in a recent Dollar Tree Cricut video, so you can check that out if you want that file. Really, the 1x2s are so versatile, and you can frame so many different signs. You can even frame wood signs like I did here with this one from Christmas. So tons of different options, and they just look really pretty. So what about all those scraps? I told you to save them. You're like, Whitney, I saved them. What do I do with them? Well, here are a few ideas. I like to just create a pile as I'm going. I don't think anything's too big or too small. And for this first one, I also had some 1x6 quality pine that was left over from another project. So I decided to cut a 12-inch piece, and you can use whatever scrap you have, or you could also look at a value wood section inside of your store. A lot of times they're trying to get rid of wood, and so you can find smaller cuts for cheaper. Then I'm taking these little squares as well as these other little pieces and just hand sanding those because I'm not trying to like tear off my finger pads with a power sander on that one. Now I had 4 pieces that were about the same size, so I decided to glue them on as little legs to a riser. So I used some wood glue, put them where I wanted them, and then I used my clamps to help hold it. You could also put something of weight on top if you don't have clamps. You just want to make sure it's pressed down so it can dry. Now, if you have wood glue that squirts out the side, just take a wet paper towel and wipe it away. Wood glue does not stain at all. It may a little bit, but not really. So by wiping that up, you're not going to have any weird stain issues when you go to finish it later. I did the same thing on the other side, and I also made a second one because I wanted to stain one in Early American and one in Briar Smoke. Again, let those dry overnight. I like to let my stained items, especially if I'm going to paint them or work with them, dry overnight just because it just helps make sure it's fully dry. Even though the container says an hour dry, I usually give it overnight. Then I wanted to add some fun stripes, so I used some painter's tape to create one with 2 horizontal stripes like this, and I just kind of eyeballed it. A fun trick is to use the edge of your wood to help line it up for the first one. And then once those are painted, I let them dry. I also did some vertical stripes as well as some horizontal stripes to create kind of a ticking stripe pattern on the one that was stained in briar smoke. And again, that was just having some fun and kind of winging it with some painter's tape. Then because I wanted to put stuff on top of this riser and I didn't want any of the paint or anything to scratch, I'm using my triple thick Varathane polyurethane, and I am giving it a good coat both top and bottom. This is going to dry matte clear because that's the option that I purchased. And then I don't have to worry about if it gets wet, I can wipe it down. If it gets, stuff sliding across the top, it's not going to scratch it. And this one has found a home in our bathroom. I'm going to use it for like my cotton ball container and my perfumes. And then I also have this other one downstairs on our coffee table with this beautiful vase and really gorgeous faux flowers that I got from Michael's, as well as a candle. So these flowers are so beautiful. I got them 40% off at Michael's, and I will link them down below. And then this vase is Studio McGee from Target. So I love this whole vignette. It turned out so pretty. Another scrap option is to just take your pieces and stain them, and you can use them as little mini risers. So here I just wanted that one tree to be a little bit higher. It blends in and it gives height where you need it. Another time you might need this is if you have a mug where you really want to see the design on a mug, but it's hiding behind something. You can go ahead and just use some of the pieces to raise that up behind it, put your piece back in front, and it just looks so much more visually appealing. You can see so many more of the hearts, and it just really helps. Now, what if you have a lipped tiered tray like I do? That's another time that I love to do these. So I cut some smaller pieces that I knew would fit inside the lip, and then I use them for things like this where mugs won't sit because they're too wide. You can raise them up and you're good to go. They're not going to move. They're not going to jiggle around. And you basically go from this wah wah to this, which is so nice. Now, if you don't want the wood to stand out, you could easily take some additional items like garlands or little trinkety things and fill it out. So for this example, because my Valentine's Day stuff was just easy to grab, I added some of these wood valentines. You basically cover it up and nobody is the wiser that you've got a riser under there. You can also take some of those pieces that are 3-4 inches wide. I took 4 of them and tied them up with jute twine. And then I just used these Amazon markers to write a message. So I did, "You are my sunshine." We love that at our house. My mom sang that to me, and then I sing it to Finn now. And so I just went and wrote on there, but you could easily do a Cricut decal as well. And this is just a cute little thing you can add to any setup. You could do your family's names, your favorite songs, whatever, but it's a great way to use those scraps. And then finally, I have a random assortment of ones that are stained and not stained, just a bunch of different lengths. So I went through and gave one side of all of them a coat of Mod Podge. Then the stained ones, I decided to add some of my fun custom designs that I did for Expressions vinyl. These are available until February 18th only. So if you like these prints or want to get some of my vinyl, you have a couple days to do so. So act fast. And then once I measured, cut, and got my piece ready, I just peeled off the back and applied it with my hands. Nothing too crazy, but then you have a fun print. And this was also fun for me to memorialize some of these custom prints that I did. So I did my Crafter's Doodle and my leopard print. And then I used my Canon selfie printer to print out some smaller images of trips that we've went on for YouTube to add to my craft room. And then I just added some little Dollar Tree clothespins, little mini ones to the back. And then I could just clip and add on my little photos. This would also be a cute card holder or little reminders if you have Post-its. If you're a Post-it note person, you could clip those on here as well. But I love this. I love all of the little fun craft decals and photos with my crafty buddies from our trips. And then this last one is using a really fun technique with the Mod Podge. You want to let the Mod Podge fully dry, and then you can use the heat method to re-engage the Mod Podge and not have your paper get all wet. So I use the medium setting on my Easy Press Mini along with this Teflon sheet to press it down. I give it probably 15 to 20 seconds as I work my way across, and then it's going to re-engage that Mod Podge and basically suck in that cardstock. Then I'm just trimming some excess around the outside, and it's done. Now you can do the same thing with fabric, so I decided to do these fun rainbows for a fun effect for my craft room. And then once you trim the excess, it is good to go. So I love these pink stripes as well as the rainbows just for some added color and super fun designs. You could also add some Cricut decals if you want. And then I also decided to do some seasonal stuff. So I took a buffalo check piece of fabric, did the same thing. And then I also did cardstock. It will do tissue paper, cardstock, fabric with that Mod Podge trick. I tied 3 of them together with some jute twine, and this is ready for my St. Patrick's Day setup. And it's a perfect way to use your scraps. That's going to do it for today's video. I hope this inspired you to get creating with wood. I absolutely love being able to make stuff like this for around my house and then hang it myself. So I hope some of my tips and tricks help empower you to get going. Now, all the supplies that I've used today will be linked down in the description box. If you can't find it, just click the little more button on the YouTube app underneath the title of this video. It will expand and you'll be able to see all of those links to the supplies I used. If you've got questions about wood projects or techniques or anything, leave those down in the comments as well. I would be happy to answer them and continue to hopefully empower you guys to use wood tools, try them for the first time, and as long as you are following the proper safety protocols, you can do it. Be sure to hit subscribe if this is the first time we're meeting so you don't miss any future DIYs, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!